The knock at midnight. Before we begin, make sure you lock your doors tonight. Because what you're about to hear could happen anywhere. The night in Alexandria, Virginia, was quiet, too quiet for late October. A soft drizzle slicked the sidewalks, streetlights haloed in mist. It was 11:47 p.m. when Shayla's dog began to bark, sharp and uneasy. She thought it was just the wind. Until the doorbell rang. Ding-dong. At first, it sounded almost playful, followed by faint laughter echoing through the door. Shayla's mother stirred in her bedroom upstairs. She muttered, "Who's ringing the bell at this hour?" Curious but cautious, Shayla opened the security app on her phone. Her Ring doorbell feed flickered to life. 3 figures stood at the porch, motionless under the weak porch light. They were dressed in Halloween masks, one a clown, another the hollow-eyed face of a nun, and the third, a twisted parody of Michael Myers. The laughter came again, distorted through the intercom. Then one of them leaned close to the camera and whispered, "Open the door." The words weren't shouted. They were calm, commanding. Shayla froze. Her fingers trembled as she reached to turn up the volume. Another voice followed, deeper this time. "Open the door or we'll come in." That's when the sound changed. It wasn't laughter anymore. It was the pounding of fists against wood. The camera caught the joke each time they slammed the door, the audio crackling as one of the masked intruders dragged something metallic across the frame, leaving a screeching sound that made Shayla's stomach twist. Inside, her mother appeared at the stairs. "Who is it?" "I don't know," Shayla whispered. "They're wearing masks?" Her mother's eyes widened. She tried to sound brave. "Tell them to leave." Shayla pressed the intercom. "This is private property. Get off the porch." For a second, silence. Then, one of the masked figures leaned closer, tilting his head like a curious animal. His gloved hand lifted to his own throat, drawing a slow, deliberate line across it, mocking the gesture of a cut. Then came the countdown. 1. A second figure joined. 2. The third slammed his fist against the door. "If this door doesn't open," a voice growled, "we're coming in." The family's worst nightmare had begun. Shayla's heart raced as she whispered to her mother, "Call the police." She could hear the dispatcher's voice faintly through the phone as her mother explained the situation: masked men, trying to break in. The dispatcher urged them to stay calm and stay inside. But outside, the intruders weren't leaving. The Ring camera caught them circling the porch, testing the windows, tugging at the frames. Their laughter had turned erratic, like a chorus of madness. One of them looked directly into the lens and said, "Happy Halloween." When Shayla replayed the footage later, she noticed something chilling. The voice didn't sound amused at all. It sounded hungry. Moments later, the sounds moved to the backyard. The crunch of boots on gravel. The crack of wood. "They're breaking the fence!" Shayla screamed. She ran to the kitchen, flipped the light switch off, and peeked through the blinds. Through the gaps, she saw a flashlight beam scanning across the yard. One of them was tearing down the screen door. "Mom, they're coming around!" The sound of the dog barking became frantic. Every thud echoed like thunder. Shayla grabbed a baseball bat from beside the counter, her hands shaking so hard it almost slipped. The 911 operator's voice on speaker said the officers were on their way. "Stay where you are. Do not engage." The masked trio reached the back porch. One of them banged on the glass door, fogging it with each breath. Then silence. Just the sound of rain and breathing. And then, a whisper so faint it barely registered. "Let us in." The power flickered once. Then twice. Shayla's mother clutched her cross pendant. "Dear God, please!" In the distance, sirens began to wail. Blue and red light reflected faintly through the curtains. The intruders turned their heads, then disappeared into the shadows, running, their footsteps fading into the wet street. When police arrived minutes later, they found the fence torn apart, screens shredded, and muddy footprints leading into the woods. But the masked trio was gone. For Shayla and her family, the nightmare had only begun. Because even as officers dusted for prints and reviewed the doorbell footage, she couldn't shake one final image from her mind. The clown mask leaning into the camera, whispering one last thing before the video cut to static. "We'll be back." The footprints in the yard. The following morning felt unreal. Alexandria had never looked so ordinary. The same quiet street, the same trimmed lawns, but for Shayla, every sound scraped against her nerves. She'd spent the night in fragments of sleep, jumping awake at every creak of the floorboards. When daylight finally bled through the curtains, the house looked like a crime scene. Splintered wood from the backyard fence lay scattered across the damp grass. The torn window screen flapped in the breeze like a ghost that refused to leave. Police tape crisscrossed the property. 2 officers crouched by the back porch, photographing muddy footprints. The prints weren't random, they formed a trail, looping around the house before vanishing into the woods behind the fence. "See the spacing?" one officer muttered. Whoever this was, they moved fast, probably wearing boots. Shayla's mother stood on the patio, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her face looked smaller somehow, her voice brittle. "I just don't understand," she whispered. "Why us? We don't bother anyone." The officer's response was careful, rehearsed. "Sometimes these are thrill seekers. But the escalation, that's what concerns us." Thrill seekers. The phrase made Shayla's stomach twist. Thrill seekers didn't tear down fences or whisper threats through the dark. Inside, she replayed the ring footage again, forcing herself to watch every frame. The masks seemed more grotesque in daylight, their plastic eyes reflecting porch light like real pupils. Then, at the 10-second mark, something new caught her attention. Behind the clown mask's shoulder, a faint flicker, like another face in the distance. For a split second, she thought there were 4 figures, not 3. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hello?" Silence. Then breathing. Slow. Deliberate. She hung up. Her pulse hammered in her ears as she checked the number again. No caller ID. She told herself it was a glitch, a wrong number, anything but what her imagination whispered. That evening, the Alexandria Police Department held a small press conference. The chief's words echoed through every local news channel. "We are treating this as a criminal offense, not a prank. The individuals responsible will be identified and prosecuted to the fullest extent." The clip replayed over and over, but Shayla could only focus on the background, the crime scene photos spread on the table. In one, the footprints near the fence clearly overlapped. Whoever had been there circled back. That night, she made a decision. She wasn't sleeping in that house again. Not until they were caught. But fear, once it finds a way inside, doesn't need walls. At 1:12 a.m., her phone pinged, a motion alert from the Ring camera. She hesitated before opening it. The feed showed only rain and the empty porch. Then a flicker. For half a second, a silhouette passed the far end of the driveway. The system labeled it, motion detected, human. Her hands shook. She zoomed in, frame by frame. The outline was faint, distorted by rain, but unmistakable, the curve of a mask. "Mom," she whispered. "They're back." Her mother rushed downstairs, clutching her phone. But when they checked the window, the street was empty again. Only wet asphalt glistening under the lamplight. The police arrived minutes later, sirens cutting through the drizzle. They searched the perimeter, found nothing but new footprints pressed into the mud, larger this time. One officer knelt to measure them. Different size. Different shoe. Maybe someone else. Shayla stared at the impression. It looked like a work boot, heavy, industrial, not the same sleek prints from before. "Someone else?" she asked. The officer hesitated. "Could be a copycat. Word spreads fast when footage goes viral." And it had gone viral. The Ring clip was everywhere: Twitter, TikTok, news broadcasts. Millions of people commenting, analyzing, speculating. Some claimed it was fake, a Halloween stunt. Others swore they recognized the voices. For Shayla, the attention brought no comfort. If anything, it made the masks feel closer, as if those who hid behind them were watching every repost, every comment. At 3 a.m., another alert. Backyard motion? She opened the feed again. Nothing. Then a faint whisper, barely audible, slid through the speaker. Still awake? Shayla gasped, dropping the phone. The police found no trace when they returned, only deep prints under the bedroom window. The chief's patience thinned. We'll post patrol cars here tonight, he said. But as dawn approached, Shayla realized something the officers hadn't noticed. Every print, every single one, was facing toward the house. None led away. And in her camera's final frame before the battery died, the clown mask reappeared for just 1 second, hanging from the fence post, dripping with rain. The return to Amelia Court. Morning came, but sunlight no longer felt safe. The house on Amelia Court stood like a hollow shell, blinds drawn, tape still clinging to the front door, silence heavier than air. Shayla hadn't spoken much since the last incident. Her mother tried to distract her with the news updates, but every headline said the same thing. Masked intruders still at large. Detectives visited again, asking if the family noticed anything new. Shayla hesitated before speaking. There was another voice last night, she said softly. Not from the porch. From inside the walls. The officers exchanged glances, unsure whether it was fear or something more sinister creeping into her mind. Still, they installed an additional motion sensor and left, promising they'd keep an eye on things. But no one ever really watches when you need them to. That evening, rain returned, harder, angrier. The wind howled through broken parts of the fence, making them clatter like bones. Shayla sat in the living room, scrolling through her phone, trying to escape the thought that the camera might blink to life again. Then it did. Motion detected, 9:42 p.m. The notification pulsed on her screen. She tapped it, expecting another false alarm. But what she saw made her blood freeze. The camera showed the front porch, empty at first. Then, one by one, 3 figures emerged from the shadows, as if stepping out of thin air. The clown. The nun. The faceless mask. Their heads tilted toward the lens in perfect unison. Mom! Shayla's voice cracked as she stumbled to her feet. Her mother ran from the kitchen, phone in hand, already dialing 911. Outside, the figures moved closer. The clown pressed a gloved finger to his lips, shhh. Then he pointed toward the side of the house. The feed glitched. Shayla switched to the backyard camera. What she saw next didn't make sense. There was no one there, but the gate, which had been locked, was swinging open. Slowly. Smoothly. Then came the whisper again, crawling through the speaker like a hiss of static. You called the police last time. Why? Shayla's mother dropped the phone. Turn it off, Shayla! Just turn it off! But before she could, the feed split into static. Then darkness. The power cut out. All at once, the entire neighborhood sank into shadow. Only the faint beam of a patrol car appeared down the street, moving toward their home. From outside came footsteps. Not running, deliberate, heavy, circling the house. The sound of metal scraping against glass. Her mother whispered a prayer. Please, God, not again. The dog barked wildly, clawing at the door. Shayla reached for the baseball bat again, her heart pounding so violently she thought it might burst. And then came the knock. 3 times. Slow. Knock. 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 No laughter this time. No countdown. Just that hollow sound echoing through the living room. Then silence. The patrol car lights finally flashed across the windows. Officers shouted commands, storming the yard. Shayla's mother flung the door open and screamed for help. But when the police searched the property, no one was there. Only the fence gates swinging. Only footprints, fresh, deep, circling back toward the woods. One of the officers crouched near the window and frowned. What's that? Taped to the glass was a Polaroid photo, wet from the rain, its ink running slightly. The picture showed the front porch. The same porch they stood on now. But there was one horrifying difference. In the photo, taken from somewhere across the street, Shayla and her mother were visible through the curtains, standing exactly as they were now. The timestamp read 9:43 p.m. 1 minute before the power went out. The officer swallowed hard and called for backup. "We've got evidence they were watching from the woods." But when the forensic team arrived hours later, something else came to light. The footprints leading into the trees stopped abruptly halfway through the mud. No exit trail. No tire marks. Nothing. It was as if the intruders had vanished mid-step. By dawn, the neighborhood was crawling with reporters. Shayla watched from the window as cameras flashed and microphones waved. Some claimed the footage was fake, that the masks were actors, that it was just Halloween hysteria. But Shayla knew what she saw. When she reviewed the final ring clip recovered by police, the feed ended just before the power outage. Yet in the last 2 seconds, the reflection in the glass revealed something no one had noticed before: a fourth figure standing behind the 3 masked intruders, not wearing a mask at all. Just smiling. The case was never solved. The video spread online like wildfire, sparking debates, theories, ghost stories. But in the quiet corners of Amelia Court, long after the cameras left, a single doorbell still rings on stormy nights. No one there, just a faint whisper recorded through static. "Open the door."